We've all heard the song "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." Well, today's guest is country music legend Charlie Daniels' longtime manager and friend, David Corlew. David worked with Charlie for more than 45 years and toured with the Rolling Stones, the Allman Brothers Band, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and more. In today's episode, we talk about the stories behind the songs, how they were written, stories from life on the road with Charlie Daniels, and their nonprofit, the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project for veterans. Today's episode, politics and then getting involved with the military, because that was in the 2000s.
Well, the military thing started way early, in the late 70s.
Okay.
And because of Charlie being a patriot. And it was, you have to look at Charlie and realize that he was a unique guy that in our time, our collective time, here's a guy that actually remembered World War II. He remembered the Korean War. I think he was 7 or 8 years old during World War II. And he, as a kid, saw the German U-boats sink freighters off the coast of North Carolina. Right. And he listened to that. He remembered when Pearl Harbor was bombed. So that is where patriotism is spawned out of, is things like that. So, and then there was the wonderful story that he shared so many times about having to, being out of school in the summertime and sleeping in as a young boy, that all young kids want to do. They don't want to get up and go to school.
Yeah.
And his mom said, "No, we're going to church." And she said, Mom, we don't go to church on middle of the week, at 8 o'clock in the morning. And she said, "We're going to pray for the troops that are landing on Normandy Beach on June the 6th. So he had a sense, he was born with a sense of patriotism because of that time period. And him being, and I say this because it was the things that he shared with me. He was overweight. He had bad eyesight, so he wore thick glasses. So obviously we all know today that we deal with abuse within the youth and the school structures based on gender and things like that. Well, back then, if you were overweight and wore glasses, you were a target.
Yeah.
And because his dad worked in the timber business, he traveled a lot. His dad moved from all up and down the eastern coast. And so I think he went to 3 different schools in 1 year. And so the new kid always gets picked on.
Yeah.
And
especially if you look different than everybody.
And so it really built him, in him, I don't think it built a resentment as much as it built you're not going to beat me. I'm going to, it put that fight spirit in him. And when he came to Nashville, the same thing happened to him. When he came to Nashville, there was a clique in the session community doing recording sessions, and the musicians, what they call the A-team. In Los Angeles, it was called the Wrecking Crew. Glenn Campbell was a part of that. Muscle Shoals had its musicians. And so there was an A-team that played on, probably 70, 80% of the records in Nashville. And Charlie tried to penetrate that, and it didn't happen. And when Bob Dylan came to do Nashville Skyline, he was the first pop artist to put musicians' names on an album cover. And when he put Charlie's name on Nashville Skyline, which was definitively Bob Dylan's, probably one of his greatest works.
And how old was Bob Dylan and Charlie about this time?
I don't know. I'm sure Charlie had to be in his 20s. He had come to town with a gentleman by the name of Bob Johnson, who produced those records. He was the head of CBS. Charlie and Bob had met in Texas, and he brought Charlie to Nashville. And Charlie was kind of an assistant to Bob, to Bob Johnson. And Bob was producing Marty Robbins, and he was producing a lot of the artists in Nashville. And Charlie did get to play on a lot of those records, but he also did a lot of other assistant type work. Back in those days, when you cut a record, you cut it on 2-inch tape, and those masters literally had to be delivered to New York. And so Charlie was, and that was one of his jobs, is to, after they finished the record and mixed it, they had it on 2-inch tape. It was in a box. They put Charlie on an airplane, and he went to New York and delivered the masters to New York so it could be pressed. And
I know, hearing about that, I watched this interview with Luke Combs, and he kind of talked about the same thing. He came to Nashville, but he didn't fit the mold of everybody in Nashville as a hot, young musician guy, and you have this really big, overweight guy with a beard, not handsome.
Yep.
And he comes to Nashville, and they just turn him away, and he has to work hard and break through.
And those are the things that build that fire in our guts, so to speak, to rise above and beyond. It's what makes some young men, maybe like you, that you join the military, and it's that fight. It gives you that fight in your gut that hopefully used in the right way can carry you all the way through life.
I know, whenever we were talking on the phone the other day, I kind of felt the same way. Growing up, I was the redheaded kid.
Yeah.
And same kind of thing, you're different. And so I used that chip on my shoulder to then get into exercise and running and working out, and then joining the military. And it's like, I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you were born and raised in Nashville. How did it come about that you crossed paths with Charlie?
Well, as I said, when I'd gone through that difficult time with my police record and being on the street, I quit high school. I felt like I didn't fit in at the high school that I went to because of probably their dads made this amount, and my dad, I didn't have the stylish Weegians. I didn't have the shoes. I didn't have the polo shirts and stuff, and my clothes were clean. My mom worked really hard to raise us and to take care of us, but the chip that we talked about earlier that goes on your shoulder. But anyway, I leave school and do the things I do, and obviously we all end up in the construction business. And I was working on a track drill, and it was wintertime, and I thought, I need an inside job. So in those days, in the 60s, early 70s, you found your job in the newspaper and help wanted. There was a whole column of jobs, and I saw where there was a record store in Nashville that needed a record store clerk, someone to sit behind the counter and sell records. And it was owned by it was started by a really famous air personality. His name is Scott Shannon. He's still very much alive. He went on to create pirate radio in Los Angeles, went to New York and became a top 40 DJ, maybe one of the most popular in the country's history. And I talk to Scott from every once in a while, actually. But I worked in the record store, and because it was in a part of Nashville where the Pancake Pantry, Hillsborough Village, it was in that area, which was in the middle of 4 or 5 universities. There was Vanderbilt, there was Belmont, there was Scarrett, there was all these colleges. So that was what I would call the Haight-Ashbury of Nashville in the 60s. That's where all the hippies were. And we sold papers, we sold rolling papers and bell-bottoms and music.
Yep.
And
it all goes together.
And so, I wanted to fit in. So, I was, the truth be known, I was just a long-haired redneck, which was the protocol for Southern rock, and so I took that job, and a lot of musical artists that were recording on Music Row would come into the store. And I met Charlie. He came into the store to buy music, and so I created friendships with a lot of these guys, and a lot of things. I met a lot of the guys, but ultimately there was an opportunity where he was looking for someone to. He had a hit record called Uneasy Rider. And he had to put a band together to tour. He had been touring for a while, not based on that hit record, but now he had some kind of popularity away from being a session musician. And he needed somebody to drive the equipment and set it up.
Yeah.
And, I was 21, 22 years old at the time. And
So he came in one day asking.
yeah, we had a conversation, and I had always wanted to travel. I'd really never been anywhere except wherever boxing took me, and that was pretty much in the southeast of the United States. And in the conversation, they needed somebody. It was $50 a week, $5 a day per diem, and I just thought, this is my ticket out of here, and I took it. And so I always say I saw America through the windshield of a 72 Chevrolet van.
Man. And so back then when it first started, were y'all, because nowadays everybody has tour buses, were y'all in a couple vans?
We had two Chevrolet vans. One had the band in it, and the other one had the equipment in it. And so it was me and a guy by the name of Daryl Shannyfelt. And him and I followed the musician's van, and we went to the venues, set the equipment up. I knew nothing about electronics. I knew nothing about equipment. I learned by, failure.
Yeah. Now, did they know this at the beginning, that you didn't know anything? It's like, you'll just learn on the job?
Well, and yeah, I did do it that way, but that's where everybody, I mean, who are you going to get to set up your equipment and, but fix the flat tire when the truck breaks down and stuff. So it was, a little bit of a demeaning job, but for me, I mean, it was rock and roll, man. I mean, a different town every night, and with all the attention, that's really kind of a facade with the music business. It seems like you're on top of the world, and everybody in the band's broke, and you're only making, at that time we were only making $200 or $300 a night, so
And
we
so at this
barely got
point,
by.
when he released that record, and you start with him, how big of the audiences were you guys playing?
Oh, we played. We're kind of like Jimmy Buffett said one time. There were times when we played in a club and there were more people on stage than there were in the club. So, Jimmy Buffett had a great story where I think one night he was playing in Mississippi somewhere, and there were so few people in the audience, he invited them all to come up and put their chairs on the stage, and they all just sat there and played.
Oh, just a jam circle on the stage.
Yeah, and so that's the way it was with us. And Charlie's music was certainly an important part of his career, but the entertainment, he always wanted to be an entertainer, and he even, to see a big guy that was, 250 pounds, 260 pounds, moving like he did, and with the excitement and his ability to perform to audiences and be able to read an audience and know what they want, that stayed with him all the way through his career. But then you're making $500 a night and $1,000 a night, and then we did Fire on the Mountain, and Long Haired Country Boy was a FM radio hit.
So how did that song, Long Haired Country Boy, how did he go about writing that? Were you around that time period when he was writing that song?
He wrote it in my basement. I had gotten married, and I had a rental house out in, I guess it would be considered East Nashville, out in Bordeaux, North Nashville. And so we rehearsed that album in my basement. And so Long Haired Country Boy is, again, if you listen to the lyrics, it's about, a rebel. And I say rebel not in a political sense, but when you're going against the grain, when you're standing up to those that you were downtrodden.
Yep.
And so that's where Long Haired Country Boy came from.
And we were talking about Lynyrd Skynyrd earlier. What was his process to songwriting? How did he approach that?
With Ronnie?
Or with
Charlie? Charlie was a lyric guy, but a lot of the time, because in those days obviously we were all influenced by Dwayne Allman and the Allman Brothers and that extended jam thing, where you played music. And so there were a lot of times when they, in rehearsal, would just play. Somebody would start off with a riff and fall into a certain time measure. And musicians were really, really musicians then, and they would play and obviously find a pattern or a song, a structure that sounded good. And like Ronnie Van Zant, Charlie would go off and write the lyrics. Or a lot of times Charlie had lyrics, and then they put music to it. So it was both sides. Sometimes they wrote the music, sometimes they wrote the lyrics first.
So in those early days when that album came out, what was like a week on the road in those early 70s, 80s with the Charlie Daniels Band? What was that like?
Well, we worked every day.
Yeah.
We worked every day. And during that time period, you'd be in a bar one night, and then on the weekends, if you had the agency were doing their job, we would open up for a headliner. And gosh, there are bands that probably nobody in the audience remembers, but Wishbone Ash and Savoy Brown, and as we got more popular, then we got on some Allman Brothers shows. We played some shows with the Allman Brothers, but we worked with the Allman Brothers. We worked with Rod Stewart. We opened up for the Rolling Stones on quite a few shows. So as your career grew and your popularity, in other words, it's all based on, do you have the ability to sell tickets? And what a headliner, like you spoke of Luke Combs really doesn't need anybody to sell tickets for him.
Right.
What they need is somebody to fill a time slot and get the audience pumped and excited, and it makes for a good show for Luke Combs. And the same way with the Allman Brothers, and the Rolling Stones didn't need the Charlie Daniels Band to sell tickets, but it was a band that excited the crowd, and they were all stadium shows. That was, and so
and the fiddle tunes, I mean, it's just high energy.
Exactly, and that's what Charlie was never. Charlie would tell you if he was here, he would say he was just the worst fiddle player there was. He did everything. He played wrong.
Yeah.
He, a violinist holds the violin with their chin, and it leaves their fret hand open to fret. Well, Charlie held the fiddle with his hand and was able to fret also. So he played in an unorthodox way, and he said his mother would go to heaven when she did pass, not only based on being a sweet woman, but she suffered through the period of time where he learned to play a fiddle.
I can imagine just in his house, just
yeah, it's like skinning a cat. It was brutal. But if you read his book is wonderful. He talks about as a young kid, he wanted to learn to play, and he had a friend named Russell Palmer, who was his best buddy, and Russell probably came from a family that was more. They were well off, and Russell's dad bought him a guitar. I think it was at Western Auto. Western Auto was a chain of stores back in the 40s, maybe even the 30s. I don't know, but
kind of like a Sears where you could get everything.
You could get anything, and he got Russell's parents bought him a guitar. And Charlie, from another guitar, somehow had learned 2 chords. And when Russell got that new guitar, they were literally sitting in the bedroom, and Russell showed him the 3rd chord. And Charlie says in his book it was a life-changing moment, because you can't write a song with 2 chords. You got to have 3 chords. And when Charlie said, I learned that 3rd chord, I think he literally snatched the guitar out of Russell's hands and wanted to take it home. But that was like a beginning point in Charlie's career.
And how old do you think he was?
Oh, I think he was 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people start pretty young.
Yeah.
Picking up music.
I think, and of course he grew up. I know that when we were doing our best to hopefully you can't really campaign to get into the Hall of Fame or become a member of the Opry. They just have to. But at the time, the powers to be, because we had been a rock band and working with the Rolling Stones and the Allman Brothers and Rod Stewart and all of that, there was someone in the structure said, we're not really sure where Charlie's roots are.
Yeah.
Were they born in the country? And I go, Charlie grew up listening to WSM radio on a dirt floor, listening to a radio, and you just can't get any more country than that.
Nope. So during those early years, whenever y'all would hit the road, say on the weekend, y'all would play open for a show. Was there the party scene afterwards in the?
Yeah, it's the party started. The party lasted all day long. I mean, it was just it's the lifestyle of a traveling musician. Obviously, you're exposed to the United States. You get to see country, and you get to go to different cities and stuff. But as Glenn Frey said in the song "Smuggler's Blues," it's the lure of easy money. And I mean, it's a gypsy lifestyle. And so, of course, you're exposed to the beverages and all the other things that go along with that. And obviously, it's been the downfall of many, many people.
Yeah, and I've heard from people that it was probably much crazier back then because there's no cell phones.
Yeah,
everybody didn't have a video camera to break out and record what you were doing.
Well, the funny thing is too, it also went with credit cards too. We had a credit card. Charlie had a MasterCard, and back then in those days, after 6 o'clock, after MasterCard closed, the hotel couldn't call to check in. Now you put your card in the machine, and it tells you right off whether it accepts the payment or not. Back then, the hotel clerk, the bar, they had to call MasterCard to see if you had enough credit. And I think we had a $500 limit on the credit card, so it was always overdrawn. And so sometimes we would have to wait till after like midnight to check out of a hotel so they couldn't check our credit card. But yeah, the lifestyle is it's a different life. It's a wild life, and so you fall into the drinking and the drugging and things like that. And I think we did pretty good. Obviously,
because Charlie was already a little bit older, in his 30s, around 74.
Yeah,
to 79 or so.
Yeah, he was always a big brother, father figure. Charlie. Charlie had a drink, but Charlie had to be in control. Charlie was like he was the band leader. It was his deal. And so we had to have one responsible adult. And Charlie represented that.
Yeah.
Charlie was that to us. And Charlie ran a pretty tight ship. Charlie grew up in a period where the world ran on railroad time. So if there was one of the first lessons I learned with Charlie was be on time, and if you were on time, you were late. So and railroad time was the definitive time because trains had to run, and so we always said we ran on railroad time. And
so during that period, were there any things in the beginning before you really got to know him that really got on his nerves or pet peeves with the crew or anything like that?
He didn't like conflict. He believed that it was disrespectful to not be on time, and but he didn't like to be looked down upon. And so in those days, bands would, based on, let's say there's 3 or 4 acts on a show, the headliner, of course, has control of the stage, and they set their equipment up where they want to, and then everybody else had to, then the co-headline had their line of equipment, and then our amp line. And so usually with us opening a lot of those early shows, we only had 5 or 6 feet to work with, and Charlie didn't like that. So there was a lot of times, again, I think that's some of the history that people don't know about, but the Southern rock groups were, again,
A little more
we're
rowdy.
talking about English musicians and hippies from San Francisco and all passive attitudes, and we're a bunch of rednecks from the South, and so if you didn't move the equipment, we'd move it ourselves.
And Charlie was a big guy. He was 6'2".
Yeah, so nobody pushed us around. We weren't bullies, but
Yeah.
we wanted what was due.
Well, I heard this story. Maybe you know about it, but it was, I think, when Lynyrd Skynyrd and Ronnie Van Zant, they opened for the Rolling Stones, and they were told not to go out onto the tongue on that stage, and then Ronnie kind of pushed everybody out further onto the stage.
I think it was in San Francisco when that happened. It could be. I might have that wrong, but yeah, that's a very true story. Again, Ronnie, poor, lower middle class white kid from Florida, we just didn't take any crap,
Man. So at that point, when you came on board, Charlie was already headed towards success. He'd already had success in the music. He was already moving up.
Yeah, not really. No. Uneasy Rider was a hit record, but the way the music structure is in those days, that the label gets all their money back before you make any money, and the labels always had a way of keeping you indebted to them. By the time, when it got up into the 70s and 80s, and I learned more about the business aspect of music, the way it is, you cut a record, and it's 14 to 16 months before it's released. By the time they package it, put together a promotion program for it. So all of that gets charged back to the account, the general account. So all of that money has to be paid back before you get $1.
Man.
And so you're always in debt, because by the time 18 months later, by the time you start to get your checks, you're already making another record.
And that's probably how they keep you on the treadmill, to keep pumping out records.
Exactly.
Man.
So, it took a long time to get to a point where there was money. So we worked a long time for short, as cowboys say, short wages. And so it was a struggle up till, really when things really broke wide open is Devil. Devil really changed the terrain of Charlie's career.
So with that song, there was some co-writers on that, but where did the idea, that concept for that song come about?
The co-writing came, all of Charlie, when you look at Charlie's records and the co-writers on it, those were the other 5 band members.
Oh, okay.
And so just out of generosity, obviously they helped write the music when they were putting the musical piece together. So, and that was really unheard of, but Charlie would take 100% of the song and divide half of it up between the other 5 band members. So they took 50% of the song and each got 10%, and then Charlie kept the other 50% for himself. Devil went down to Georgia. I was just sharing this story with someone last night. When we did Million Mile Reflections, Charlie was very distraught. It was right after the plane crash and Ronnie had died, and he and Ronnie Van Zant were very close, as well as we were with Dean and Steve Gaines and a lot of the people in that band. We had toured so much together. And so when Charlie did the album, Paul Grupp, who was an engineer on Boston, he worked for John Boylan, who produced the Little River Band, produced Boston. John Boylan was a part of Linda Ronstadt's original band back in the 60s, and John was producing the record. And John's engineer said, "Charlie, you don't have a fiddle song for this album." We had really finished the album.
Without Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Without Devil Went Down to Georgia. And when Paul said, "Charlie, you don't have a fiddle song," and, it was kind of, everybody kind of looked around, wow, how did we do that? And Charlie had The idea of the song, according to Charlie, came from a Stephen Vincent Benet poem that he had read in school, and it was about somebody challenging the devil for their soul. And we were cutting at Woodland Studio, which was a very famous studio back in the early days of Nashville, over off of Woodland Street and 5 Points area over there. And we tore the equipment down out of the studio and went over to Studio Instrument Rental and set up. And he literally wrote "Devil Went Down to Georgia" in a really short period of time. I mean, like in a couple hours, a couple of days. By the time they got the music and everything, and then we went back in the studio and recorded.
When you recorded that song, did anybody know that it was going to be as big of a hit as it was, or did you guys just think, hey, it's just another song, we're filling the album out?
Well, back to what we were talking about, the time period it takes from the time you record a record until till it comes out. In the meantime, they learned the song and we played it live. And we used to have a annual concert called the Volunteer Jam. And he played it at the Volunteer Jam. It was before it had been released or right prior to it being released. And people just went crazy. And that's how we knew it was a hit, because we started playing it live, and it was just
getting the audience reaction.
People loved it. And I'm trying to think of the rapper, one of the early rappers. I'll remember his name in a little bit. But he always said that Charlie was the original rapper. He was the original first person to put words and rhyme with beats.
Well, and that song, it just flows right off the tongue.
Wycliffe John, are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
He was one of the early rappers, and he's the one that credited Charlie as being an inspiration to rappers of putting beats with words, with verse.
So I have a funny story about "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." I still remember it. I was in elementary school, and I was trying out for choir. And so I was in elementary school. I was trying out for choir, and I was trying to figure out what song I was going to do. And I wanted to do "Devil Went Down to Georgia." And my mom was like, "You can't do that song. It's not a singing song.
Yeah.
You're not singing." And I wouldn't listen to anybody when I was a kid. And I was like, all right. But in my head, I'm like, I'm doing that song.
Yeah.
And so I remember it was in the library, and they're like, all right, what song are you going to sing for us? And I don't know, 4th grade, and I'm like, "Devil Went Down to Georgia." And I play the CD, and it's just, you're just talking through it. And I remember I did the whole song, and I cut the music, and they were just standing there, and I was like, "Do you want me to do it again?" And they're like, no, we got everything we need. Thank you. We'll let you know.
Like auditioning for a film.
Yeah. But it was funny. They're like, you can't do, that's not a singing song.
Well, it became such a huge hit and a song that continued to reinvent itself.
Yeah.
It was a hit. And then we did Urban Cowboy, which really launched it into a mega record with Urban Cowboy. And then as time passed, then it was put on the Coyote Ugly soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And it relaunched itself again. It's one of those evergreen copyrights. Then after that, the first computer-generated guitar, the Guitar Hero, it was one of the more difficult songs on that. So again, it just continued to be reborn.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those just special songs.
Yeah.
That is just always going to be coming back up.
If you're a publisher, it's the dream. It's the evergreen copyright that will continue to earn, as long as there's music.
And so was that Devil Went Down to Georgia on that album, was that 75 or?
No, that was actually 79, 80.
79.
Right in there.
Is that when things really started to change and take off?
Yeah, it really did. And obviously, it was often said that Urban Cowboy was the greatest thing that happened to us but also was a tough thing that happened to us because Charlie had never been considered a country act until it was put on the Urban Cowboy soundtrack. And once that happened, we had been signed to well, it was CBS at the time. Now it's Sony. But we were signed to Sony New York at the time, where all the pop acts are signed. And Charlie never wanted to be categorized, and he had never set out to be a country act.
He just wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, he wanted to be, and because we had been through the Southern rock thing, so we were immediately transferred to the Nashville office, and all of a sudden, it was a completely different world. We had producers that wanted Charlie to record other people's songs, and he wanted to write all his own songs. So it became it became years of conflict of Charlie's music.
So that's starting in 79, 80, but he first came into Nashville early 70s?
No, he actually came in the 60s.
60s. So he was initially rejected by mainstream Nashville?
Yeah, because of the nature of session musicians. I mean, there's a structure of union musicians that play on songs, and the best players, or at least at that time, it was Kenny Buttrey and Charlie McCoy and Bud Moore, these guys that played on all the Elvis records and all the early Patsy Cline records. There was this A-team of musicians.
And so there's so many people moving to Nashville trying to break through since Nashville got started. What do you think made Charlie different whenever he initially got that pushback to break through?
Obviously, we talked about it earlier. His looks made him different, but what happened again for Charlie, because he was rejected, he decided that he didn't want to be from Nashville. He lived in the Donaldson-Wilson County area, so that's why it was always Charlie Daniels from Mount Juliet, Tennessee. It was never Charlie Daniels from Nashville. And we recorded Fire on the Mountain, Saddle Tramp, Night Rider. We recorded all our albums in Macon, Georgia.
And did the fact that Marshall Tucker Band, Allman Brothers, that they were around that Macon, is that what drew y'all?
Yeah, that's why we went to Macon.
Yeah.
Because we were touring with them already, and so instead of using a Nashville producer, we used Paul Hornsby, who produced all the great records on Marshall Tucker Band. Their first 3, 4, 5 records, Paul Hornsby produced all of those. And
so back then, when y'all would tour with Tucker and the Allman Brothers, there's no phones, there's no laptops, there's no technology. Whenever y'all weren't on stage, was it a lot more hanging out together?
Oh,
back
yeah.
then?
There was you either got together in the Holiday Inn bar or, which always broke down to go into somebody's room and the guitars would come out. I'm in the process of maybe starting my book soon. And some of my stories, some of the best times of my life is sitting on the floor in a Holiday Inn, obviously having a beverage of my choice and listening to Toy Caldwell and Charlie sit on the sides of, the double beds and exchanging licks and playing songs. And always in a situation like that, they would start playing their favorite songs. So Charlie would, play a Hank Williams song, and Toy would play, a song by somebody that he liked, or a blues song. And so those late night sessions lasted all night.
Man.
But I heard some of the greatest music. I remember hearing This Old Cowboy by Toy Caldwell for the first time, sitting on the bus. That, as we got more popular and we were able to get a bus, we would end up riding on each other's buses sometime. And, Charlie and I would get on the Marshall Tucker bus, and him and Toy, and they would all sit around the front lounge and play. We saw the sun come up a lot.
I bet. And so many talented musicians just jamming. Did you play an instrument or anything?
No, never, no instruments, no no music. The only part of the music business that when Charlie became more successful and obviously I got into a management position with Charlie.
So how did that come about, working from the crew to getting into management?
Well, what happened to me, I mean, all I needed to do is be able to plug in 4 or 5 amps and set up a keyboard. And then obviously when you're at a venue all day, whether it's a nightclub or whether you get to be in a big facility, I started hanging out with the lighting guys, and I learned to run a lighting board. I was a lighting director for a few years, and you just kind of learn, and I started watching every aspect of it. And then when our road manager quit, it made sense that I was the road manager because I'd been there the longest. And so you start out with 2 guys, and now you got 4 guys, and as you get more successful, making more money, now you've got a guitar tech, you got a drum tech, you got a sound guy, you got a monitor guy. And so the crew continues to build to where Full Moon was the album that came out before Me and My Reflections, and that had Woolly Swamp on it, and then we had Devil. And so that catapulted. When we did the Me and My Reflections tour, we had 56 people on the road. We had a horn section, we had backup singers, we had square dancers. Charlie was very innovative in taking out, when everybody else had a box truck or putting their equipment in the bay of the bus, we had 3 tractor-trailer rigs and 56 people on the road.
Because you were telling me the other day that he wanted to put horns in the band and kind of innovate that band.
Right. Yeah, and it just continued to grow. Actually, that's how my wife and I met. And Charlie didn't want to sound like a Nashville act, so he auditioned in Los Angeles for his backup singers and his horn players. He wanted musicians that were not of the Nashville.
And just detached from that entire...
Detached from that deal. And my wife was in Los Angeles and was singing. She was actually working with Bonnie Bramlett, and she auditioned and got the job and came to Nashville.
And y'all butted heads.
Yeah, butted heads on the road. We didn't get along at all. She was always trying to tell me how to do my job, and I think I went to Charlie and said, "Charlie, the singer from Los Angeles is driving me crazy. We got to do something." And so I guess I ended up marrying her.
Good polar opposites to balance each other out.
Yeah, always. And she's been a wonderful life companion.
Wow. How long have y'all been married?
41 years.
What's the secret to a good marriage?
The secret to good marriage is forgiveness and patience and learning to adapt. Learning to adapt. We all have defects, and marriage is a wonderful thing, but it's a partnership and it's a give and take. And I learned later on when I went through therapy and things that it's a 90% give and a 10% take. You got to really learn to. And we had tough times. My behavior wasn't the best at sometimes, and
I think just from the partying or the lifestyle
just the
aspect.
lifestyle itself. I mean, it's. Again, like I say, the entertainment business is, and I don't want to paint a dark picture. The music business is a wonderful business, but it opens so many doors to, it's hard to take. Whenever you take 5 or 6 lower middle class white kids, and all of a sudden they've got a full bank account and. We'd gone from making $200 a night to where you're making $200,000 a night. Money does that to people. We all know that. And
you're out on a stage where thousands of people are there to see you.
Telling you you're great and you're wonderful and you can't do anything wrong. And so, it's the old adage of you start believing your own press. And so...
So what was Charlie like when he came off stage? Because I'm guessing you got to know him better the longer you were with him.
We had, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and Charlie was always Charlie was always better behaved than any of us were. But I mean, Charlie had fun. Charlie didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me to sit here and say, he was a patron saint, he wasn't. We had fun, but it was innocent fun.
Yeah.
It was,
I guess how did he treat everybody? Like family?
Oh gosh, it was like family.
Yeah.
We felt very connected, and I had a daughter that grew up on the road with us. I mean, we got together every Christmas together. I mean, it was Charlie. If there was a family feel to bands, we really kind of had the market cornered on that. Us and Willie was known for his family. So everybody was, everybody got to share in the success, and it was fun. And Charlie became a Christian earlier on. Charlie broke his arm. We were digging post holes. Charlie finally had made enough money, bought him a ranch, bought him a piece of ground out in Mount Juliet, and him and I were, and a bunch of the crew guys, we were fencing it. And Charlie caught his arm in an auger in a post hole digger. I was on the tractor, and he caught his arm in it, and it broke his arm in 5 places.
How old was he at this time? What year frame you think it was?
That was it was around 80, 81, because the year that he broke his arm, he won a Grammy for Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Wow.
But he had a broken arm and couldn't play. So we always said we had to hire 2 fiddle players to replace him, and Vassar Clemens and Buddy Spiker, who were very famous fiddle players in Nashville. We hired them, and we actually played the Grammy Awards that year. Charlie sang, had a sling.
Oh, wow.
But when he broke his arm, his life changed. I think the fear of almost losing his arm, they said had he not been so big, it would have pulled his arm off. And
because that's his whole life, is his arm playing.
And it was his fiddle bow. It wasn't his fret hand. It was his right hand. It was his picking hand. So
what about that accident drove him to Christianity?
I think that he would tell me, and I'm sure he shared this story. I think that he had he cried out, in his words, he cried out, and God, help me with this, and I don't remember the words, but I'll be a better person. And I think he was always a Christian. I think it. I don't know. We call it a practicing Christian.
Yeah, we all believe, but some of us go
right. Yeah, I think he was always a believer. He grew up in a church. Obviously, it was something very important in the rural areas of the Carolinas when he grew up.
And everybody has those moments where it seems like he grabs you for a second.
Oh yeah,
and wakes you up
and gets your attention, and that's what happened. And he began a journey then to where he became, for me, one of the most devout Christians that I'd ever personally come in contact with.
Wow.
And he was very instrumental in a lot of us finding Christ. It's a journey.
Yeah,
it's a journey, and but again, I talk a lot about his book because it took him a long time to write his book, and he always said the chapter he wrote about his faith was the hardest because it's hard to explain. He always said it was so simple, it's hard for people to wrap their hands around it. It seems very complex to me.
Yeah.
But
man, and so during that time period, and when that happened, 81, were you the road manager at this point?
Yeah, I had become when he broke his arm, I was the road manager at the time. And I mean, I was the road manager from 1975, 75, somewhere around there, all the way up. And then there was a more sophisticated word called a tour manager, which, because we had so many people, it was bigger than just being a road manager, I guess.
And so what's the difference between a road and a tour manager?
I don't think there's any difference. I think a road manager was an old term.
I see.
And then as we got older and wanted to be more respected as critical people to the system. Became a tour manager, and again, in road manager, you gotta think about, you're just doing one date here, one date there, one date here. You're working with the Allmans one night you're working with Skynyrd. Then when you get to the point where you're able to sit down and map out a tour and say, as a headliner, we're going to do 100 dates, and we headline every date. I mean, there were very few acts at that point that we would open for, that we would play before. So we actually put together the Charlie Daniels tour, the Midnight Wind tour, the Million Mile Reflections tour. So
you're in charge of organizing all that tour logistics, all that putting it together,
with a lot of help.
Yeah.
With a lot of help. We had an office staff, and we had someone that negotiated the money in terms, and so then in 1988, Charlie and his manager split ways, and he was looking for another manager, and it was he was looking everywhere, and I went to his house one day and I said, I want to manage you, and it was kind of like, you're my kid, you can't manage me, you know.
Yeah, he's like the father figure to you.
Yeah, he was a father figure, and he gave me 6 months. He said, I'm gonna give you 8 months, see how you do, and it worked. And so from '88 up till the point he passed away.
Wow.
And in that period, we started our own record label, and
So did you come off the road in '88 and be more?
Yeah, 89,
based?
80. I tried to do both for a while, and then finally 89, 90, I came off the road and went to work in the office.
So before that, I thought about it earlier. Whenever that plane crash happened with Skynyrd and Ronnie Van Zant and the other members passed away, do you remember where y'all were when y'all got that news?
Oh yeah, we were playing the Kill Auditorium in St. Louis, Missouri.
So walk me through that. How'd y'all find out?
We were getting ready to go on. I don't remember who was opening the show, but we were getting ready to go on, and somebody called. Somebody called and said the Skynyrd plane went down early this morning. So this is 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So we didn't find out about it till later on. Again, there weren't phones and there weren't computers, and so they said the plane had gone down. And so Charlie went on, and I think he said something to the audience, and we got together afterwards and prayed. But we had found out that Ronnie had passed away, Dean Kirkpatrick had passed away, Steve Gaines had passed away, Cassie had passed away. So we kind of got the details, and we were all friends, but Charlie and Ronnie had a real strong connection.
How did he handle that?
He handled it as good as anyone could handle losing a great friend. He had hard times. He had, on Million Mile Reflections, I think the plane went down in '78. So when he did Million Mile Reflections, there's a song on there called Reflections, and it's a tribute song to Elvis, Janis Joplin, Duane Allman, and Ronnie Van Zant. And I know that every night he did that song, he would break up in the song. He struggled with it for a long time. But again, having his faith and the faith that he had, as all wounds heal, and then we were able to move on like we do as humans.
Yeah.
And the sadness fades, and then you start telling the stories, which.
Do you have any stories that stick out working with Lynyrd Skynyrd before the crash?
Well, I think Charlie's favorite story is that we were playing somewhere, I don't know, and I think we were all in the bar. Obviously, Holiday Inn's were the hotel where everybody stayed, but we were in a Holiday Inn bar somewhere, and they came and got us. The front desk came and told Charlie, you have a long-distance call, and they're on the line, and they wanted to see if they could find you. And we went up to Charlie's room, and it was Ronnie Van Zant, and they were calling from Europe. And it was when Skynyrd did the big tour with the Who, I think, is where they really broke in Europe. And they used to hang a big Confederate flag, and they had somebody had dropped the flag. The flag had fallen from the truss system, and Ronnie wanted to know if Charlie. He asked Charlie if he should burn the flag or keep it, and I think as the story goes, Charlie said, "Did you do it on purpose, son?" He goes, "No." He said, "Well, then hang it back up." And again, the innocence, obviously, that represents something dark in a time period where. But for us, we were just proud of being from the South.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the racial part of it. It was just we were just really proud of being from the South.
And I grew up in Georgia the same way when I was still a kid. I mean, you thought nothing of it. It wasn't politicized back then. You'd wear it on your T-shirt to school. It didn't have all this kind of like this stuff that people put on it now.
Right. Yeah, it was just being from the South. We were very proud of it.
And it was more of a symbol of being a rebel against whatever current system.
Yep. It was, the predecessor of a hippie. It was, going against the grain and the establishment, so to speak.
So when did Charlie start really getting outspoken on, say, politics or just Southern heritage and history or faith, a lot of these things? Because a lot of musicians now don't talk about any of that.
Yeah. Well, I think for Charlie, I always said I worked for Charlie so long I could remember when he was a Democrat. When Jimmy Carter ran for the presidency in the 70s, being from Georgia, his campaign manager was Phil Walden, which was the head of Capricorn Records and Paragon Booking Agency. They had a monopoly of Southern acts. Phil Walden's the one that signed Dwayne Allman. He saw Dwayne Allman in Muscle Shoals and gave him a record deal, and that's where it all began in Macon. And Phil Walden was Jimmy Carter's campaign manager. And so we did a lot of fundraising for Jimmy Carter. And as Charlie always said, Jimmy Carter was a wonderful human being. He just wasn't a very good president. But
seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, he was a wonderful guy. We did a lot of fundraisers. We got to spend a lot of time with Jimmy Carter and Chip, and Chip was his son, and we spent a lot of nights in Holiday Inn bars with Secret Service guys around us. So
wow,
it was. And we learned a lot about that and the process, and we played the inaugural ball in Washington, and it was. I think the press said that there had never been so many hillbillies in D.C. since Andy Jackson was run that won the presidency. So,
and so that was in the 80s with Jimmy Carter, 70s?
No, it was in the 70s. 76, 77 in there, I think.
And so from early on, Charlie wasn't on stage or in the press. He just spoke what he believed.
Yeah, he spoke what he believed, and it was more of a lifestyle from the Southern aspect of it. Look at the lyrics of Long-Haired Country Boy, leave this long-haired country boy alone. Wanted to live and let live, kind of an attitude. And then after the Carter years, not after the Carter years, but then when In America came, when he wrote the song In America, when he goes, when he talks about tell Russia to go straight to hell, that was when Carter's, of course, his 4 years or however many years he was the president, when we'd had the Iranian crisis, the hostages, and it was a dismal failure, his presidency was, and everybody was beating up on America. And calling America weak and all of that. And that's where he decided to write the song In America, was to, go ahead and lay a hand on the Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That was his first political statement.
Yeah. And how was that received? Was there pushback by the label?
No. No, it was strong and it was a big song.
Yeah.
It was a big song.
So as time went on, I mean, there was more, probably not till the past 10, 15, 20 years, a lot of pressure against just Southern heritage or, say, bringing down monuments or things like that. And it was a different time period in the 80s and 90s. Was there ever any pushback from these labels to try and push Charlie to not talk about certain topics? Or
Yeah, I think it was ultimately at a point in time. I mean, I think it was the reason why we started Blue Hat Records. We started our own label because it's and Charlie's music had gotten political, and there wasn't as much desire for Charlie musically, recording wise, as there was for live performances.
And when was this?
Gosh, I would think it started in the 90s.
Okay.
And country music went through the roof in the 90s. We call it the class of '89, when Randy Travis, Travis Tritt, Vince Gill, Garth Brooks. I mean, country music went through the roof in the early '90s, and it was all because of, country music went in the ditch after Urban Cowboy because it was the Mickey Gilley hits. And we loved Mickey and we loved doing the movie and everything, but that John Denver era, Olivia Newton-John, that what we call cosmopolitan country, got to be popular, and it really just kind of augured into the ground. And then when Randy Travis came out, it brought country music back to the roots of what country music was, and from that point forward, it just exploded. Man. So country music through those early '90s was huge. I mean, probably the top 10 albums were selling 5-6 million and up.
Man.
And then you had Garth, and Garth made such an impact.
So we talked about, I think the other day, but if you had to explain it to somebody, what is the Nashville sound that a lot of people want to get away from, whether that's Waylon, Willie, Charlie? What do they do to musicians?
I think Nashville, the Nashville sound was because of the musicians that played it, and because of George Jones and the earlier artists, Barbara Mandrell and all of that. I think Nashville had a certain sound, and I think that when the desire to cross over to the pop market, when all of a sudden, and I'd have to think about it, a crossover hit where it became a hit on pop radio as well. Devil was a crossover record early on. I mean, it was played on rock stations too, but when the real crossover and the advent of young, we all wanted that. The music business wanted that young demographic. Well, when they brought it to a science, when they started dissecting it down and going, this age group from 14 years old to 22 years old have more disposable income than anybody, so they started changing the sound of music to where it appealed, had a more youthful sound, a more pop sound, and I think that's when Nashville lost its Nashville sound. Yeah. Now, I mean, and I'm not being mean about it, but we all know that a lot of the music sounds the same. It's hard to separate a pop hit from a country hit. And
there's a lot of pop beats behind a lot of music,
right?
Country music.
And
nowadays.
Now it's really in this decade. I mean, in the last 10 or 12 years, it's really become. A lot of the beats and a lot of pop.
And what do you
music.
What do you think that is? Do you think that's just the L.A. record influence moving to the Nashville offices, then shaping?
No, I think it's the desire of marketing. I think it was the advent of phones and iTunes and what did we call the music device after CDs? I can't even.
iPods?
Yeah, iPods. I mean, when all of that technology came about, and then the desire to penetrate the market, and get a younger demographic that spends more money. You know, I know in the old days, as I got into the deep part of management and was in the publishing business for quite a while too, on my own, not with Charlie. I got in the publishing business on my own, but they were able to look at it in music. They were able to dissect it down to a definitive age group and a sound, and then radio stations. When the movement, you know, there was a movement by, I'm trying to think of what they called it, but it's Live Nation now. But when they started, you know, there was a movement where they bought all the venues first. This big conglomerate bought all the venues. Then they bought all the radio stations. You know, you had somebody like Buck Owens that owned 2 radio stations in Bakersfield. You know, they were probably worth a few $100,000, and the pioneers before Live Nation came along and were paying. I mean, Buck Owens, you know, I think the rumor is that $50 or $60 million for a station that was worth $500,000, and so they bought the radio stations. They bought the venues, and so then now they start making it. When they got the radio stations, they realized that the people only wanted to hear the hits. So then the playlist used to be a top 40. Think about that. It used to be called the top 40, and now I think a radio station only plays maybe 18 to 20 songs in rotation.
So they really figured out how to corporatize all of it.
Yep.
And control the venues, control the radio, control all the
To
distribution.
get as much of and then they bought even the Ticketmaster. Then they started controlling the ticket sales.
So who do you think right now, maybe in the last few years, in the country space that you're kind of listening to or aware of is keeping that traditional country sound alive?
I think Jason Aldean has. I think he's had a great way of blending and appealing to a youthful country audience. I mean, the audience got younger too. The mass appeal because of the pop sound. Cody Johnson. Cody Johnson. Look what he's doing. You know, I would call him the predecessor. He'll be our new George Strait.
And he was independent for a long time.
Yeah. And these, you know, a lot of these changes. Obviously, Garth had a big impact on the business, but Cody Johnson, these guys are doing, Eric Church, you know, they're all doing good stuff. And, I mean, Chris Stapleton, you know, but, you know, you look at Chris Stapleton, he's the same as, it's like Vance. Vance did 9 records in Nashville before he became a hit. Chris Stapleton was a songwriter around here for years before things happened to him. But
I didn't realize how many of the hits for other people he wrote.
Oh yeah, he was a big songwriter, and now it's kind of flipped. He's making a living on recording other people's songs now. But you know, music's changed so much, but it's always changed. It's an evolution, and it's going to continue to evolve. And, you know, just when we think country music's gone, you know, somebody does come along like Cody Johnson that comes right back to the square, right down the middle of what Nashville music was and country music was. And
there's a big demand for it.
And you got to remember the material in which songwriters draw from. You know, there's no honky tonks anymore. There's no jukeboxes. There's no, you know. So the evolution of technology. So the material for songs, the writers draw from a different source now. They draw from the back of a pickup truck or something like that, more so than Pop a Top Again or some, you know, some relation to that older time.
And as I attended Belmont for a short period, and they have a songwriting department there. And I talked to the chair of that department, and I was talking to him one day, and he showed me some of the offices where the students were working on songwriting, and then they would pitch those to some of the labels for some of the artists. And I'm in here thinking they're writing for trying to pitch these songs to country artists. And I look in there, but these are like 18-year-old kids that are from New York, all trying to put their heads together on how to write a country song.
Yeah. I got involved in publishing. I wanted to branch out, and I wanted to be there was a time when I didn't know how long Charlie would continue to tour as he got older. And so I went downtown. I always said I left the farm and went to Nashville and got in the publishing business and had a lot of success. I had something like that. The Tim McGraw, I was a publisher. That was one of my songs.
Really?
Montgomery Gentry, Speed. I had a song called I Love You, which was a Martina McBride #1 that ended up being the title song for the Runaway Bride movie.
And so how do you get into publishing? Or how did you get into it?
You find songwriters. You find these young kids that come to town and offer them a salary, and it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
You know, you invest in a kid and you pay him $25,000 or $30,000 a year to write songs, and in return you get half of the publishing. And so I was lucky enough. I signed a kid named Chris Wallen, and one of the first songs he turned in was a song called I'm Trying that Trace Adkins cut. It was his first #1. Wow. And he went on to write Speed. He wrote for Montgomery Gentry. He wrote Something to Be Proud Of. He wrote, it wasn't my song, but he wrote Blink for Kenny Chesney. That was after he left me.
Man, that's a good song.
I had a #1 on Toby Keith called Hate Me If You Want To, Love Me If You Can.
Did you work with Toby Keith?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. I had a friend that managed him. T.K. Kimbrell managed him for years, and we didn't even work a lot of dates with Toby. Him and Charlie were friends, and Toby was a wonderful guy and a brilliant songwriter in his own right.
Yeah.
No, that's what I did. Went out and pitched songs.
Wow.
Went out and pitched songs and get artists to.
And was this in the 90s as well, or more in the early 2000s?
90s and early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so in the 90s, Charlie was probably now in his 60s, 50s?
Yeah.
So how did Charlie Daniels handle touring as he got older?
He never slowed down. I mean, in the old days, back in the 70s, we did 250, 260 dates a year. And for the last 15 years of his career, he never did under 120 dates a year.
Man.
So he was a monster at touring. That's all he wanted to do was play live. He loved to play live.
Yeah. How do you juggle the family life, touring that much?
Well, his son stayed at home till he graduated from college. And then when he left home, Hazel had stayed home with him, Miss Daniels. And then when little Charlie got out of college, Hazel came on the road. So they were together 24/7.
And that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Just bring the family on the road.
Just got to bring them on the road. My daughter grew up on the road, and a lot of her Halloweens were just backstage. All the different acts would have candy on their buses. And so my daughter Taylor would go around when she was 6 or 7 and knock on the bus doors. And
Wow.
of course, the road crews would put candy in her bags, and they were friends, and we trusted them. But every once in a while, she'd come back to the bus with a beer in her in her Halloween sack. You know, we'd have to go look, guys. You know, that's not funny. Maybe she hit a bus that didn't have any candy, so they gave her a beer.
They probably thought it was funny.
Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
It was funny.
He was just trying to balance parenting and being on the road.
Oh, yeah. But I really, my daughter grew up as a world traveler. I mean, at 8 years old, she was flying to Europe. And back then it was safe to put, you know, the American Airlines used to have the escort program. But my daughter would be, it was after I'd come off the road and I was at home, and she would stay with me some while she was in school, and then in the summer, her mom, my wife, was still singing. So she would go out for the summer and travel on the bus. And
Wow.
Miss Daniels would babysit for her while Carolyn was on stage. And then,
And you were telling me your daughter, because of that, has a very high bar for hotels now.
oh yeah, she's hard on hotels and travel but it made her what I would call a worldly person. I mean, she learned manners. She wasn't allowed to. She had her area on the bus. She had her own bed on the bus, and it was a good learning process for her. She learned how to communicate. She learned how to. She learned a lot.
Yeah.
She learned a lot of what she didn't want, and that was to be in the music business. When she got out of college, she had a mass comm degree or a Bachelor of Science, and she was going to be in journalism. And I got her all these meetings with record labels, and I wanted her to be in the music business. She said, "Dad, I hate the music business." And she had danced all her life. She had been a dancer, and she's had a studio for 12 years. She's very successful.
Wow.
Travels around the country as a judge in a lot of competitions and stuff. So
Yeah, I guess when you grow up in it and
Yeah.
seeing it every day, you get to see the good and the bad, and you're like, okay,
Yep.
I've done it.
Yep.
I'm going to do something else.
Yep.
So as y'all got into the 80s and the 90s and then the 2000s, when did Charlie first start playing for the troops or at military bases?
Well, like I said, he was a patriot all his life. Even before, I think in the 60s, he went to Thule, Greenland and played for about 200 Air Force guys and up there on an ice cube up there. But in the late 70s, early 80s, we started playing. We set aside designated time period to go overseas, and so we played every military base during the Cold War, in Germany and all over Europe, and Guantanamo Bay, and then we'd play bases here in the United States too. But we definitely had a time period every year that we'd do that, and when the trade towers came down, he wanted to be one of the first acts to go downrange in Iraq, and so we made that happen. And he made 3 trips over there. And
I know I think we talked about it the other day. I interviewed Gary Sinise on a prior episode, and he was talking about that when 9/11 happened. He wanted to go over there, but after a while, he just got tired of just going there and shaking hands.
Yeah.
And so then he started the Lieutenant Dan Band.
Yep.
So he could have something to.
Oh, it was, and Charlie. I remember the first night we played Baghdad. We flew into Kuwait, and we did Camp Arif John in Kuwait. And I think it was in Kuwait. There were a lot of troops in Kuwait in 2005.
Yeah.
And he told there was probably 4,000 or 5,000 kids at the show, soldiers, and he said that. I don't know if you want to, but anybody that would like an autograph or would like to talk, stick around, and I'll shake everybody's hand. And I think we were there till 0400 the next morning. I mean, he literally went through, he shook hands and signed autographs for 4,000 troops.
Wow.
And that became a pattern. And obviously he wasn't a young man, but he was young enough. For instance, we would go to Baghdad and do a show that night in Baghdad, but during the day we'd hop on 2 or 3 Blackhawks and go out to the forward operating bases, that were where there were 50, 60 guys, 100 guys, where there was still 50-gallon drums for the bathroom facilities, and we would go out with acoustic guitars on Blackhawks and play for them. We'd do 2 or 3 different forward operating bases during the day, and then go back to Baghdad at night and play a show there. We did that in Al-Assad. We did that in Baghdad. I mean, we were. I've been to a lot of forward operating bases. I ended up going back. I got hooked on the adrenaline and being a part of it, and so I ended up picking up other jobs and going back over there. And
what was it like going from touring in America and Europe, playing these shows, that first time you guys go out to the Middle East, and now you're playing for the troops out there?
Well, I think for some of the guys it was a little scary. I'm an adrenaline junkie, so it was fun. When you do the the landing, the death spiral into Baghdad. When you're dropping 5,000 feet and turning in 45 degrees, and I saw a few people lose their lunch and on those things. But it was eye opening. But it was, our first dust storm was in Al Assad. We were playing in front of 2,000 Marines in Al Assad, and we'd gotten the equipment out of Kuwait, and this dust storm comes up, and Charlie keeps playing, and the guy that owned the equipment from Kuwait, he was a Kuwaiti, comes up to me and he said, Mr. Daniel has to quit. My equipment is being destroyed. And so I kind of sneak out behind Charlie and say, I think his name was Epi, we call him, as Epi wants you to stop playing. And Charlie said, there's 2,000 Marines in front of me. I ain't about to stop playing. He just had his head and his hat turned into the wind, and we kept playing. Finally, we did have to quit. It got so bad. But the experience, and I think that's what created Journey Home Project, was we saw when we started seeing some of those young men and women come back and the struggles they were having. Obviously, we started raising money for other foundations. And
so when was Journey Home Project? When did y'all officially start that?
2014.
Okay.
13, 14. And prior to that, we had events that we would raise money for other foundations. And because of the foundations, some of them were misspending and not doing the right things, we decided if we were going to raise the money in Charlie's name, we wanted to be good stewards of that money and make sure they went to the right place. And so that's how Journey Home Project came about.
Nice. And so now, 2014, when y'all started that, Charlie's in his 70s at this point? And so he's still doing those 100-plus dates a year in his 70s.
Yep. And he designated one night a year. Well, actually, it turned into two. We started doing a fundraiser in Atlanta as a partner with the Shepherd Center, which is a TBI and spinal cord.
My dad had a really bad car wreck in 2017. That's where he went because he broke his back in a bunch of places, broke both of his legs, had spinal fractures. But he went there.
Yeah, and they started. James Shepherd, who we got to be friends with, was in a wheelchair. And he had in 1973. That's how Shepherd Center came about. In 1973, he was traveling the world after college. He was trying to figure out who he was, and they were rich kids traveling. And he was in South America and got hit by a wave, phantom wave, and it broke his back and did something to his spine. And he spent quite a few days in the hospital in Brazil and somewhere in South America. And when he came home to Atlanta, he told his parents, if I ever get past this, we should start a hospital because nobody should ever go through what I went through in South America. And so I think they rented beds from Emory Hospital.
Wow.
And then they built it into the hospital, and now it's like 2 or 3 city blocks.
Yeah.
And then I want to say 12 years ago, they created a PTS clinic. It's a wellness clinic. I think they have 20 plus beds, and they do some incredible work with the veterans. And it was all because of James Shepherd loved the military.
After I got out, I realized how many, I didn't know while I was in, but you realize how many organizations out there really caring for vets and really doing good work.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's our trouble right now. War is not front page news, and foundations are struggling now. I think there's too many foundations personally. I think that's the confusing part for people to donate. They don't know where to donate. They want to help. They just don't know how to help. And I think that's what Journey Home Project does really well, is that we'll sit down with you and talk to you and, do you have someone that served? Do you have someone that was affected in some way with combat or with conflict, and
It's a good mediary.
yeah, we try to get the money to the place where you feel the most comfortable.
I think we were talking about the other day, I had Andrew Arabito on and a few episodes back, and he was a prior Navy SEAL, but he owns Half Face Blades. And I think he sent some knives over to y'all to auction off.
Yep, a guy named David Rutherford, Navy SEAL, former SEAL, knew him, and he donated some knives, and they sold very well.
Oh, yeah.
They're very nice knives.
I didn't realize there was such a big industry for knives. Whenever I talked to him and afterwards checked out his website, I think the cheapest pocket knife, $400.
Yeah.
Really good knives, though, and kitchen sets. But Andrew was telling me that there's a whole secondary market of collectors.
Yeah.
So they do limited editions on these knives, and then people will buy them, they'll sell out, but then they'll resell for 3, 4, 5 times the value to these collectors.
Yeah, and that's I try to find things that you can't normally find, and at the time we had those knives, and I saw some pretty frightening pictures of him when he was serving. I saw him on horseback.
Yeah, he's got some stories.
Yeah, he looked more like he came out of the Wild West, like he came out of Dances with Wolves rather than the Navy SEALs.
He had a mohawk at one point.
Yeah,
yeah,
and he had his face painted up, his half face, and
he's a really good guy.
Well, that's what I understand. I've never met him, but obviously he donated those knives, and they went to the right people. And
a lot of those guys, I mean, in that Special Forces community, the SEAL community, I mean, guys like Andrew, they're very, very tight-knit in that brotherhood while they're in and when they get out, looking out for those people.
Well, I think that obviously my dad used to say, I don't know anything about raising kids, I only raised 7. I don't know a lot about raising money, but I've been doing it for 20 years. And I believe that when it's all said and done, the foundations that will survive this, and I hope that we're one of them, but we're not set up to survive.
Why do you say that?
Well, because I think the ones that are going to survive are the Navy SEAL foundations and the Semper Fi foundations, where Navy SEALs serve and then they get out and they go off to become successful businessmen, and they come back and self-support where they started.
Right. So
you have that built-in donation system, that giving system that comes within where it spawned out of. And for me, I'm out on the streets hustling.
Right.
And if I can't, we're a flow through. We don't offer programs. What we do is identify people that have great programs, and we raise money and go, this is where we would like to send your money. It gets hard. Again, like I say, it's we know, you and I know that there's conflict all around the world. We know that guys right now are on post, on the wall, in dangerous places, and protecting our sovereignty and our freedoms. But America doesn't know that. They're at the mall. They're doing their thing. They're all fighting over, the politics of what's going on.
Who's using this bathroom? Who's elected here? What's going on?
And so if I'm not able to get an audience and talk to them and tell them what we need, that I think it's generational now, and I think that's a pivot of ours. I think that their kids, we work with a foundation that works with kids, and we've got kids that have witnessed a family member take their own life. And so it's generational. This PTS or without a job financially, all of this is dominoed down into the families. It's like addiction, like alcoholism. They say that alcoholism kills people that don't even have the disease. It kills family members, And so we're thankful. And I think it's critical that there's opportunities like this that you and I can talk, and that people will hear me and you say there is a desperate need for money to support these programs that can change the direction and help and support the, as we say, the return, the rehabilitation, and the reintegration back into civilian life.
And for y'all's program, other than the individual donations, y'all have a once-a-year event that y'all do?
We have once-a-year events coming up on September 11th. Since it happened, I've become friends with some of the guys that were involved in the Benghazi debacle, and we're going to have all three of the guys that wrote the book, Tonto, Oz, and Tig, going to have them in the same room, and we're also honoring Tyrone Woods, his mom, and then Bub Daughtery.
Nice.
Some of his family's coming, and so September 11th we're going to honor those guys and have some fun, give away some awards, and we're going to raise some money and give it away.
That'll be good. And if people want to support that, is it a ticketed event? People can buy tickets.
It's a ticketed event. You can go on the Charlie Daniels Journey Homeproject.org. There's information there. And I'll pass that along to you
All right.
wherever we can post it or get it out.
Yeah, we'll add it to this video. And so that started in 2014, and Charlie, unfortunately, he ended up passing away in 2020. So leading up to that, were there any signs with his health that something was going to happen?
None whatsoever. He had had a stroke quite a few years ago and had a stent put in. What happened was he was on so many blood thinners that it was just a freak accident where he had the tiniest of blood vessel burst in his brain, and so he died of a massive brain bleed. I mean, in a matter of minutes. 5:40 in the morning on 0540 on July 6, 2020.
Was he at his house when it happened?
Yes, he was. He was in bed, and he got up and didn't feel well. Got up and he had a porch off his bedroom and wanted to get some fresh air and barely made it to the porch. And he was pretty much gone.
Man.
And so that was life changed.
His wife was in the bed?
Yeah. Yep.
And so did she wake up as he was getting up?
Yeah, she woke up and she called me and called her son, and we all kind of rendezvoused. Actually stopped the ambulance to see if we wanted him to go into town, and they said we can't take him to Vanderbilt. We're going to have to get him someplace sooner. And we went to Summit Hospital there off the interstate. And
so whenever you got the phone call, were you in bed?
yeah.
And so what was that phone call like?
Like no other call I ever got. It's, you know the feeling, you respond. You react. I didn't think about anything but getting to him, as I'm sure you did as a combat veteran. You get up and you respond and you move. And for me, it was delayed because he passed away that morning. I just kind of went into what I would consider my leadership position, and we comforted the family. And then started to work on the service itself. And
so whenever you got that call and you met that ambulance before it got to the hospital, did you already know that he had passed away at that point?
No, he was just coming down the driveway when I got to him. I was only 20 minutes away from the house, so by the time they'd gotten him into the ambulance, and I had stopped him and said, we want to make sure he's going to Vanderbilt. I had the conversation with the EMT, and they said he'll never make it to Vanderbilt. And so Charlie Jr. and myself followed him in a car and went to the hospital, and it was just a matter of just minutes that he was gone.
So when they got to the hospital, they brought him back to surgery or attempting for surgery?
No, there was it was pretty final. They knew what had happened. It didn't take long for them to figure it out, and so we called. We have, obviously Mount Juliet had embraced Charlie for years, and we rallied. And
so you were one of the first people that they called. Do you feel like, other than his immediate family, you were one of the closest people in Charlie's life?
well, I don't know that. We were really close. We spent a lot of time together. I would like to think that. I would like to think that I was one of the closer people in his life. Obviously, as Lord and Savior, he was so devout in his faith. But we went through a lot of hard times together. In some of my struggles, I tell the story, and I'm open about it. It's no reason to get into the details while I was there, but I spent some time in a treatment center, and I think out of 68 days there, I had something like 58 letters from Charlie.
Wow.
He wrote me every day.
Man. What was he saying in those letters?
They were short. He had a card, a 2-page card, and it would be "Stay strong, brother," or just something. But he wrote every day. I still got him.
What time period was this?
Early 2000s.
Yeah.
2005, 6, 7, in there.
Do you think Charlie had any regrets?
No, I don't think. I think he lived life. Charlie lived life just like he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
It might not have suited, and he would always say that it might not suit everybody, and he loved his place. He loved where he lived in Mount Juliet, and he would always say, and I think his son says it now. Charlie's not. He just changed addresses, but he would always say, if I ever leave this place, it was Twin Pines Ranch in Mount Juliet. He said, when I leave Twin Pines, the only place I want to go is heaven.
And he's there.
Yeah.
Do you remember your last conversation with him before he died?
Yeah, I had just talked to him. This was a Monday morning, and I had talked to him that Sunday, the day before. And my wife tells the story. I got off the phone and said, Charlie's in a really, really good mood. We talked. We either texted or talked pretty much every day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'd miss a few days here and there.
Do you remember what y'all talked about?
I really don't, because we laughed a lot.
Yeah.
We had a lot of inside jokes, things that we found humorous. Mm-hmm. And we met a lot of characters, in that run. And so some of the best memories I have is some of my confidential conversations with Charlie.
Yeah.
We would laugh. And anybody in the audience, we all have those people that we laugh about stuff that nobody else would get. Nobody would understand it. One of my most cherished gifts my wife gave me a few years ago, or prior to him passing away, was, when you've been married as long as we had, you run out of ideas for birthday presents. And she went to Charlie, and Charlie gave her a fiddle. She went to Charlie and asked Charlie, I want to give him something, I don't know what to do. So they took a fiddle, and he wrote with his Sharpie, what he signed all his autographs with, he wrote 2 and 3 sentence lines on about 8 or 9 different situations that we experienced during our career together that nobody else would get. They're a joke about somebody, or it's something that somebody said to us that only Charlie and I really get, and the fiddle is covered with those.
Wow.
And so every once in a while I take that out and read it. And, again, the sadness, I get sad, but the sadness has left me, and I have some Charlie gave me some wonderful opportunities I would have never gotten to do had I not known Charlie Daniels. And
What's life like now without Charlie?
different. It's different. I had to find a new path. As I said earlier, or I was going to say earlier, I had a little bit of a delayed reaction. It was only after the adrenaline drop of the funeral, and after that was over, and then when the reality of it's over, you know, and it ended pretty quick, and
Because he was still playing up until that point.
yeah, and it was during COVID.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he had played a couple of shows, and we'd actually played in February in Nevada at a safari hunting club convention. And I came home, that was like February the 10th, and I got sicker than I'd ever been, and we didn't know what it was. And I had shaken hands with probably 100 different outfitters from all over the world. And then in March, they announced they had been talking about COVID the November prior to, but it was still overseas, and then by March they started shutting things down. I think Charlie played his last show last week of March, and then I didn't get to see him. We talked from March till July. I did not see him from March on, and we only talked.
So
I take that back. John Rich had just started his programming at Fox. He had a show on Fox, the streaming service, and John wanted to interview Charlie, and I said, look, he won't see anybody. I mean, he didn't even see family members except for his wife. They're in the house on the ranch, and
just didn't want to get sick.
yeah, didn't want to get sick. He was, as we all were. Nobody wanted it. But continued conversation with John, and we set up an interview. And on a clear day, it was in June, the last week of June. It was right before my birthday, or right after my birthday, and we put them about 20 foot apart. Charlie came out of the house and sat down, and the way we shot it with the cameras was that way John shot it was that it looked like they were closer than they were. And they did the interview, and everybody left, and Charlie and we talked for a while, and I want to think that was June 28th, maybe. I don't know the exact date, but that was the last time I saw him.
So since it was COVID, were they able to have the full funeral and everybody there?
Oh, yeah, we had a full funeral. Vince Gill, Travis Tritt, 5th Special Forces Group with honorary pallbearers, Gretchen Wilson. It was quite the service. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's a very moving service. Very unbelievable.
So after he passes away, I mean, you've spent now more than 40 years of your life working with him.
47.
47 years. So, I mean, that's almost like losing a spouse at that point. So what did you do after that? Did you struggle with trying to figure out what's next?
Yeah, I struggled a lot. Like I say, I had a delayed reaction, and dealt with some depression, probably 5 or 6 months afterwards.
Yeah.
Felt like, not to ever compare myself to a warrior, but it was like being on a team, and then one day they tell you it's over, go home. And I doubted my own identity. You know, my whole identity had been tied up in Charlie Daniels, and now there was a Charlie Daniels. So I struggled. I still struggle a little bit with that. But it's better. And as you know, I just had an accident in May, and so a debilitating accident. So now I've really put a lot of thought into who I am and what I've done and what do I want to do from, as they say, I'm not so sure how many good summers I got left, so I want to make the best of them.
So where you're at right now, do you want to take a break?
No, he's Tuffy's moving around. If it's not bothering anything.
Oh, no, yeah, we're all good. I didn't know if you need to go.
I'm going to continue to do what I do. I love serving veterans, and I have a real passion for it. I think I have a talent for it because of my experience. We're an event producer. We don't have the $11 a month programs and stuff like that, so I depend on raising money with the events, and I love it. And I have a new family now. I spend a lot of time with veterans, especially with the Chapter 38 5th Special Forces Group, and I serve as an honorary chaplain for them.
You do?
Yeah. And so
So do you give sermons?
Don't give sermons. I show up at the chapter meetings and pray, and I'll always offer to go visit with families that are struggling and all. But, it's my wife says if you peel the onion, there's a cowboy at the base of it. So I still have a lot of cattle and horses, and so I split my time between soldiers and cowboy.
And all that's keeping you young, man. You don't look a day over 45.
Well, thank you. I'm almost, yeah. Well, I appreciate that, but as Hank Jr. said, it's not the years, it's the miles.
Yeah.
The miles. I've had a lot of miles, but I've got to go to some places. I did, like I said earlier, went to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, Bosnia. Been to seen a lot of places.
So looking back on that whole time period, that career with Charlie, whether you're at your ranch or you're sitting at the house or you're on the couch, are there any big moments or memories or shows or nights that still stick with you that you think about every now and then?
Yeah, I think there's more of time periods that stick with me. All the good days, the old days. The old days, you always go, wow, those were the good old days. Yeah. They weren't at the time. If you really had to go back and relive them, I don't want to go back and live off $5 a day per diem and stay in crappy hotels and stuff. But built a wonderful set of memories, and got to meet some really, really interesting people. Got to meet a few presidents, and I got to do a lot of things. I got to play cards with some of the Rolling Stones. I've got my own memories that I. It's not that I keep them to myself, but I can sit in the room at night and maybe have a chuckle by myself. I can crack myself up.
I bet.
But I don't have any regrets. Really don't have any regrets, and I have a few.
What do you?
The Greg Allman has a song where it is actually a Jackson Browne song where do not confront me with my problems. I'm aware of them. So I've had some hard times. I do regret some things that I did, but
yeah.
But all in all, I can't do anything about that. Obviously, the hard places have brought me to a faith that I think gets stronger every day.
And was that time period in the rehabilitation centers? Is that when you really got back into the faith? And
yeah, but I think it's more. I think that was kind of the slap in the face that wakes you up and kind of realigns your journey. But times like these, like I said, I just broke my ankle in 6 places, so I was literally down. And for me to have to be down is the most difficult thing I've ever done. So it's really given me time to reflect and not only look back at what I have got to experience, but it really gives you an eye-opener as far as how you want to make every day special time is so precious, and it's as Charlie said, it's gone by like a hot Texas wind, And so I lived a life that very few people could experience, and for that I'm eternally grateful. And Frank Sinatra said, "Regrets I have a few." It's
Yeah.
but can't change those.
Yeah. And if you could go back and talk to that 20-something-year-old David who's about to start that road journey with Charlie Daniels, what would you tell him?
I would have to think about that. I know that. Well, I think if I had to tell him something, then it would change the path. And as hard as the path was, and as difficult as some of the things were, it brought me to who I am today. So, and I'm okay with myself.
Yeah.
There's some days when none of us are. Sometimes we doubt ourselves, and but I've realized that I can't change what's done. I can only try to improve myself.
Yeah.
Try to be a good dad, a good friend, and I want to be a servant not only to my faith but to veterans like you guys.
Yeah.
That has brought the biggest reward besides seeing children born and things like that. The normal things, serving those who have served has really been a joy to me.
And it sounds like now, after the chapter with Charlie, that's the new mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. I have no other plans past that. I don't have a desire to be in the entertainment business. Doing our events is enough of showbiz. Obviously, the military has cranked out some showbiz type guys, and so that's enough for me to deal with.
They have big personalities.
Yeah, there's some big personalities, and so, but you know what? I like soldiers come in all different shapes and sizes, and a lot of different, and it makes it interesting. And Charlie and I always said, no matter what you did for the country, if you signed on the dotted line, you signed a check that is payable all the way up to your life. And for that, we can never be sufficiently grateful or to really pay back you and all the men and women that have served this country.
Yeah.
So I'll die trying.
Well, amen to that. I really appreciate you coming out here today, David.
Well, man, I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was an honor. And anytime I get to reminisce a little bit, that's always fun.
Well, I'm sure everybody loved hearing it. I loved hearing it.
Well, I hope you don't lose your program or any advertisers by having me on. But,
absolutely.
But thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
You bet.
Thank you, everybody.